Hey, Ag Teacher Thoughts here, coming at you with another video. Today we're going to do a little bit of work on some of my favorite houseplants. Now, as you might guess, if you spend a lot of your life, most of your life, pretty much all of your life surrounded by plants, you're going to develop some plants that are odd or weird, or you're going to take a liking to them just because they're different and they don't follow the rules. So one of the things that I've kind of gotten into lately, because we have a home that has a lot of large windows, is I've gotten into epiphytes. So epiphytes are plants that live on the surface of either other plants or objects, like tree trunks, telephone poles, power lines, walls of houses. They can live anywhere where there's a surface for them to land on and then connect with. I'm going to show you a couple of epiphytes that I've recently, some I've been gifted, some I've purchased. I'm going to start it off with my staghorn or elkhorn. In some areas, this is actually a plant that you can't have. I know some jurisdictions in Florida don't allow it because it'll grow on anything. Up here in Idaho, as far as I can tell, this is not a species that is listed that you can't have. Part of that is probably because it gets so doggone cold here, this won't survive. So this is my staghorn, and it is in the fern family. And these leaves will actually get longer, and they'll kind of branch out like deer or elk horns. And then there's a large leaf down here, which they call the shield, and that's going to get really large and it's going to cover things up. So they are in the fern family as far as I'm aware. And one of the things I noticed when I got this plant is there's more than one plant in here. So what we're going to do is we are going to take this out of the pot. We're going to break the soil loose. And then I have some wood that I'm going to mount it on. And we're going to put several of them on here. And then as they grow, eventually I might share them with someone else. So that's one plant. The others that I have are air plants. They're in the bromeliad family as far as I can remember. And some of them are kind of unique. So I like this one because it's thin and it's wiry and it looks almost alien-like. And then this one is just more of your traditional bromeliad style. And then this one has the little leaves to it. And all of these plants can grow just right on a piece of wood that you mount them to. And then you either soak the piece of wood with them on that, or you spritz them with a water bottle, and that provides the moisture that they need. So with these, kind of the reason I was inspired to take care of this today is I was out fishing yesterday, getting my last few casts in. Felt it was appropriate to wear the shirt. Can't fish now, work now, my arm's in a cast. But I did a bunch of fishing yesterday, and while I was walking along the shore, I found these really neat pieces of driftwood. And they really inspired me to work with my air plant and with my staghorn fern. So we're gonna put these together, and I'm gonna kind of show you how that works. So I think the first one that we're gonna work with is the bromeliads. So these air plants. And I had them in a situation where they had a lot of higher moisture on there, and they started to put out their roots, which is perfect. Both of these put out a few roots, and we're going to work with that and this piece of driftwood to get them to latch on that on their own. But before they get to that point, we are going to use some material to hold them on there. So I've got some monofilament fishing line. This will allow me to tie them on there where it can't be seen really well. And then once they adhere with their own roots, I can go in and I can cut that and remove that, and then they'll be on that piece of driftwood. All right, so we're going to work on the air plants first, and then we'll do probably a second video on the staghorn. So this is going to be pretty straightforward as far as putting them on there. I've got my bud trimmers here. I'm going to use those to cut my line, and then I'm going to kind of just figure out how I want these on here. So when I'm planting plants and I'm designing where I want things to go, I try to like to look at the structure and see what kind of flow I can get on the piece of material. So with this, you see that there's a wide base to it and it tapers off to a point. And I was really inspired looking at that because that shape, that gives me a real flow to the material that I'm working with. And I thought, gosh, that really kind of fits my air plants, and I can really put them on there. So you kind of need to think about form and function. So we've got 3 different sizes and 3 different styles, and we want to put them on here so that they're arranged that they look aesthetically pleasing. So one of the things that I realized right off, our thin little wispy one, that is definitely got to go up near the top. So we are going to put that one up here. And then when you have something visual, even when you're making a basket or making a piece of art, you want your eyes to come in and flow through the object and then exit. So we're going to put the tiny one up front. And then, kind of like you're going up a hill or up a mountain and the trees get smaller and smaller, we're going to put our other bromeliads or our other air plants in other locations where they correspond with their size. So we're going to give a real flow to our material, and we're going to put it like that. So these are how they're going to go on there. Now, I've not done this before, so I'm going to take a shot in the dark. Saw some tutorials and read a little bit about them, so that's kind of where I arrived at this. So let's go ahead and mount these on here. One of the other things that we can do before we put them on there is we can give them a good soaking. So I have a bucket of water over here, and we can go ahead and just kind of put those in there and let them soak while we're preparing our line. And this is really kind of how I've treated them in the last few months, is I've taken them out and I've put them in the water and allowed them to be in there, and then bring them out and put them back in their containers that I had them in. So this monofilament, I realize that you probably really can't see that online since, you know, it's fishing line. But we're gonna go ahead and get a large piece of that. We're gonna cut that off. It's better to have more than less. And I'm gonna fill that in here into where I've got some of the natural cracks in the wood. Tie that off, and we're just gonna go old school, and we're just gonna do a couple of granny knots on there. No reason to get anything fancy. So one of the reasons I chose to wear gloves is I don't know a whole lot about these plants, and I don't know how my personal body will react to them. So I decided to err on the side of caution, and then go ahead and just wear gloves so that I don't react to anything if there is something there. Bromeliads are in the pineapple family, or pineapples in the bromeliad family, whichever way you want to do that. And they're not really good friends with me, so I felt that this was appropriate. So I'm going to go ahead and put the roots down towards that. And I'm going to come in under a couple of pieces of the leaves, and I'm going to just do little light ties to it. Just catching a couple of leaves, and then I'm going to come over here, catch this back side. We're going to go ahead and just knot it. So I'm not getting too technical here. Just kind of going for it. I'm going to put another granny knot back here. Just all easy stuff for us to go back and untie. Some of the recommendations that I'd come across before on these air plants is to go ahead and apply them with hot glue. I hate to use hot glue on plants just because, you know, it does damage tissue, and I kind of like my plants and I don't want them to be injured. So that's kind of why I stayed away from the hot glue. So those of you that say, oh, you just hot glue it and it'll be fine. Nah, we're not going to do that. So this is going to look a little bit janky there for a little while, and then as this plant becomes accustomed to that, you know, we will be taking this on and off and soaking the wood to provide it that extra moisture and encourage it to latch on. So we're going to put that like that. We're going to put this one. There's another aerial root right here. So we're going to go ahead and put that. In hindsight, it probably would have been easier right off the bat to use like a thin cotton line, because it's easier to tie, it's easier to see to remove. But I really want to just enjoy these right off the bat, not have an annoying piece of string in the way. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to just use the monofilament Got to get the right monofilament. So we remove this other one. Get it out of our way so we don't confuse it. And again, I know I could be using fancy knots, but we're just going to use the simple stuff. This is just going to be in a window, so it's not going to need to withstand wind or be super, super strong. We are just going to get it to stay there in case it gets bumped, in case anything else happens to it. And I'm going to come in here while I can see them, and I'm going to just trim off these other pieces of monofilament. Get those out of the way. Let's get this one while I'm remembering. Okay, and then we're going to go with our last one in here. It's had a chance to be there. This one hasn't started pushing the roots of the holdfast, so we're just going to put him right like that. Doesn't that look nice? That's going to look nice. And we're going to go ahead and put that other piece of monofilament on there. Okay, there we go. All right, so there we have our air plants mounted on our piece of driftwood. And now, from time to time, we can either splash this with water or dunk it in the water. See if we can get that to do that without these falling off. Yep, I can go ahead and just kind of submerge them in there. And then I'll come through with a little bit of light fertilizer. But that is how we're going to get our air plants. Really like how that turned out. I think that's very aesthetically pleasing. Okay, so there you go. Putting air plants on a piece of driftwood using monofilament. I know it's a little bit of a departure of things that I normally do. This is a little bit more on the artistic side and more of the fuller side rather than flowers. We're just dealing with foliage here. But anyway, I hope you like that idea. And if you do want to have a plant that requires less care and less watering, the air plants are a good way to go. Find yourself a nice piece of attractive looking driftwood and then basically tie your plants to it until they establish their own holdfast. And then once they do, you can cut the monofilament away. So anyway, hope you enjoyed. Ag Teacher Thoughts out.